Good evening. Hi, welcome to Girl Geek Dinner number 5, How to Succeed in Mobile. Thanks you guys for coming out tonight on a stormy, trafficy, awful night out there. Really appreciate it. Hope you got some food, got some drinks. The bathrooms are back through the cafe area if you need those, and we will be having some coffee and dessert afterwards and more networking, so if you can stick around if you want to chat. My name is Corzine. I'm the moderator tonight, and I'd like to introduce our panel now. Oh, and Angie Chang is basically the brainiac behind this. If everybody can give it up for Angie. She's done fabulous jobs at the Girl Geek Dinners. Thanks, Angie. And thanks to all the Google staff for all the swag, Holly, Mike, and thanks you guys a lot. Just a couple of things. You can take pictures in this room, that's fine, but please do not take any photos outside of this room. As you probably suspect, Google has some IP things going on. So what else? We are being filmed for YouTube, so if you have questions at the end, we're going to try to run mics out to people. Please try not to yell out questions in the middle, because we aren't going to be able to capture that very well. We'll try to capture everything on the mic for future generations at the very end. So why don't we get started on how to succeed in mobile? We're going to start down at the end. Christina. Christina is formerly of YouTube and currently of Pickv. She worked on the UI for YouTube and also worked on setting up the mobile platform for YouTube. Is that correct? Karyln Neel of eBay, who is, disclaimer, we work together, but she's not my boss, so it's okay. She put together a lot of the eBay mobile app for the iPhone and is even currently being brought in to do new flows for eBay's mobile. And Angana, I'm sorry, I'm still tripping over your name because I want to say your last name. She is here with us from Google, so an Android PM working out for all your questions about Android and the Nexus One. She's the one in the green sweater. Mary Ann Cotter. Mary Ann Cotter is an entrepreneur. She won one of the first Android prizes for her fabulous design, Cooking Capsules. And she is just wrapping up the newest, feature part? Recipe book?
It's a recipe app, recipe collection app.
Yeah, the newest recipe collection that is Brunch. So for all of you food fans, check out Mary Ann's app on Android. Sarah Allen, the fabulous Sarah Allen. Sarah Allen does a lot for women in tech. She's at pretty much everything I go to. I love her to death. She does a fantastic Ruby on Rails tutorial and classes for specifically for women who are new to development. And she is currently CTO of Mightyverse. It's a new mobile company based in San Francisco. And then we have Corinne Chan. She is, what is your title exactly at Chictopia? Co-founder and CTO. Co-founder and CTO. The two CTOs are together, of course. Formerly of Wells Fargo, Corinne worked on the mobile app at Wells Fargo as well in production management. I'd say that's pretty accurate. Yes. Working closely with UED, mobile development. Yes. And that's our crew. So thanks, you guys, for coming. We'll start out. I just wanted to do a brief overview. How many people here are working currently in mobile, or they are working in a company that has mobile available and you'd like to work in it? Okay, cool. And who here knows nothing about mobile and you came to figure it out? Great. Okay, good. It's good to know. Excellent. Just kind of a brief overview for the panel. We'll start out the first question. Basically, this is about context. Why did you guys get involved in mobile? What attracted all of you ladies to the mobile side of either YouTube, eBay, doing it yourself? working within Google, within the larger organizations you worked for, or as an entrepreneur. When we start with Christina. Sorry, I'm kind of picking on you because you're the farthest away.
I think for me, I was always sort of interested in mobile. I had done my grad school project on instructional design for handheld devices. And the first 2 years I was at YouTube, I worked on the desktop site. And I kind of wanted to do something that was fun and different and innovative. And at that time, myself and then my friend People Decide, who's actually currently my co-founder at Pickv and YouTube in general, we saw that 3G was coming out more, 3G hand devices were becoming more popular, and that YouTube content is small snack size content, right? And it fit very well on the mobile device. And we're like, hey, let's just give this a shot and see what happens, right? Like now is the time to do this, and it turned out pretty well, right?
So I started being interested in mobile probably back in 2001. I was working for a company called Quidnunc. It was a British-based digital consultancy in the States. And way back then, the company allowed basically all employees to explore kind of their interests in new technologies. And back then, broadband was used as a word that was considered a newer technology. Pretty funny. So, of course, I was very interested in mobile back then, but only dreaming of the possibilities because the technology and the networking carriers just didn't have the possibilities that we were talking about with, the old Starbucks marketing when you walk by, et cetera. So basically, when I came to eBay, I had an opportunity to work on the iPhone application. It was just before the App Store launched, so we were one of the 10 featured at WWDC. And when the opportunity came up, definitely jumped on it. It was basically me and a product manager, and we launched the app, and it was a great success. So that's kind of how I got involved.
Purely by accident. So some 10 years ago, I joined Ericsson back in North Carolina, Research Triangle Park. And after I joined the research team, I understood, wow, the potential of the technology and the wireless. And ever since, I'm in love with mobile. I cannot even think of a career outside wireless. After Ericsson, I was at Sun, and now I'm at Google, all doing wireless mobile platforms.
I think the lure for me for mobile was I like to look at a platform as think about what's unique about it. If it's new, like mobile, as it was emerging, the fact that it was emerging, and sounds a little silly, but the fact that it was mobile, something you can take with you, and that presents a whole bunch of unique opportunities, I think. And so that was exciting to me. And then also Android kind of lured me in once I started just investigating mobile, because it was open and there was a way for independent developers to get in the gates, which there wasn't really so much elsewhere at the time. So that's what kind of lured me in. And the Android Developer Challenge was a good incentive too.
So I've actually been historically uninterested in mobile. I always felt that people were really only interested in it because of the gadgets, and that the lock that the carriers had stifled creativity. But in the last few years, mobile phones are more powerful than computers were when I started programming. And I think that even though they're more constrained than today's computers, it's really exciting because of the capabilities of the mobile devices. Let them do things that computers can't really do, kind of like what you're saying. And so I got really excited about mobile and have gotten into mobile development in the last year actively. And I'm just really interested in the new different types of apps that you can't do on desktops that you can do on mobile.
I basically started becoming interested in mobile as it came to seek me through Wells Fargo. I had an opportunity to go to the mobile banking development group there, and one of the reasons I thought it was very appealing was because that was the this was probably around 3 years ago, where still a lot of people were carrying around Razors and maybe Blackberries, but it was way before iPhone, and you can kind of see the emerging, the PDA out there, that it was going to become the next wave of, the technology was going to be focusing on mobile devices. And coming from a PC kind of web app development world, I was sort of plateauing on that, and I was curious as to how mobile development was different from just your typical web application. So that's how I started getting into it. And then once iPhone came, it really was a validation that the mobile industry was really where it was going to be. And so with Wells Fargo, and also with Chictopia, now we have our own iPhone app here too. That, that's where it's leading, and now even further with Android phones, further validation that we're in the right space.
Yeah, and I got into it for the devices. I was blissfully unaware of the carrier kind of oppression of anything interesting you really wanted to do. Working and trying to get on deck with a carrier was a big wake-up call at a former startup that I worked at. But I could see the potential. It was like 1994, 95 all over again. It was just amazing. Plus, you could carry this around. It's like, I have cheat sheets and they're sitting right here, So that to me was just powerful and impressive. And so that brings me to the next point of like, you guys, you create things for mobile. What do your users want? Can you talk a little bit about how you discover what you're going to put out there for people? Not so much the technical side per se, but kind of a bigger, like, what's the user feedback, and what kind of things are they looking for? What do people want on their phone? And personal, what do you want on your phone? Let's start with Corinne.
Okay. I mean, having an application that's mobile means that, you have to think about what does the customer want to do on the go. And with the Wells Fargo application in particular, there are actually 3 different kind of platforms that they have. One is text banking, and that's essentially SMS, where you can view your account balances, etc. Just read-only information. But then you can also use the browser on your mobile device, and then view your balances and do bill pay and transfers. And then there's also the applications, downloadable applications, such as the iPhone app, where it's very similar to the browser experience with added features for the app. And one of the things you think about is you want to do something immediately on your, but you're not at home. So what would that be? One is you need money with Wells. So, ATMs, how can I find one easily based on where I am? And now with how many phones have GPS, that is one of the big things that you can leverage. And I think with a lot of apps, that's one of the primary assets for the phone that is very unique to it that the PC doesn't have. The other is just what kind of things you have to do. Kind of, you don't really have the time to go home to do it. So in this case, stuff like paying your bills, or if you're like your daughter calls up and says, I need $200 right away because I want these pairs of shoes, like, can you transfer that money over ASAP? Then, you have your phone there and you can do that for them. Stuff like that. Or the other one with our app with Chictopia, we think about, well, you're not at home, but you just want to pass the time because you're standing in line, and you want to just do something. And so one of the things we have is you can browse photos and just kind of, if you like to do that, and that's something you can do. And I think that's where games kind of come into play for apps. So.
I'll chime in. I totally agree with you in terms of thinking about what you can do with a mobile phone that you can't do anywhere else, and what do you need to do when you're stuck somewhere. And what we're doing at Mightyverse is we're really interested in how people communicate across languages and across cultures. And we have the iPhone app lets you, but you can download right now. Just look for Mightyverse. We just released it 3 weeks ago. The app lets you access native language recordings that are video recordings, but we don't really know exactly how people will use this app. We have all sorts of ideas. We could spend the next year developing our ideal app before we released it. Instead, we thought of the smallest possible feature set that we could possibly bear to release, and we released that. And you might look at the app and think, oh, what are they thinking? But what we're doing is we are working with people who are interested in using language that they're not native in, and working with them to figure out, to test the use cases and to see what features they need and what the app really resonates with. And this is, sort of a practice of agile development. And I think it's a really neat opportunity because you have this mobile app that people can use in their real life, and you can witness how people use it in the context of their real life interactions.
Excuse me. I think people really want something they can use in their everyday, and that's why, in our case with cooking capsules, it's something that makes life easier, and that's what I want from an app. I want something that there's too much going on already, too much complication. So something that simplifies your life. So the simpler, the better. So, you said the very least feature set in the beginning. That's what we're doing too. It's just watch, shop, and make. I mean, it's watch a little cooking show, like 2-minute cooking show, find out how to make something, shop with your built-in ingredients list on your way home, go home, make it with your checklist. And, and there's such a temptation to keep adding all these bells and whistles. And of course, everybody's saying, oh, you could do this and you could do that. And it's like, oh yeah, I could do that. But you got to really stop and be very deliberate about what you add, because I think really what people want is simplicity. And that's what I want too.
Something of interest to me is like to see how people are using their mobile phones outside US, especially in emerging countries. While I hear stories about mobile phone being the only communication mechanism in that city or village, and they share this phone amongst the community to talk, sometimes that's also the only way they are accessing the internet. That's pretty powerful. That's really powerful. I heard stories about farmers in Brazil using the mobile phone. There's one mobile phone. They use it on an hourly basis to check the prices of coffee beans in international markets, so they can time their selling of coffee. That's pretty amazing.
I think ultimately technology should make people's lives better, help them make better decisions. Like you said, help simplify their lives. So fortunately, when I was creating my app, our community is very vocal. So you were talking about how do you create things that customers want, and how do you know that you're doing that? So we also tried to keep things very simple, and thought about people, what do they need when they're out and about? Like I said, making better decisions. Should I buy this thing now? Should I buy it later? Do I want to be more socially responsible and buy a used one? I'm a business owner, and if I don't get that, return that communication, I might not get that sale. And so I need to maintain my business and keep things going while I'm out and about. So those were some key things that we looked at, just hours and hours of listening to our customers to help create a better product in the end.
I think I definitely agree with everybody here that start with like a base feature set, right, and then iterate upon that and keep it as simple as possible. And one thing that, I definitely learned is people don't have a lot of time when they're on their mobile device, right? It's usually a short period of time. They're at the doctor's office or, on the train or something like that. And so, at YouTube, we definitely took that into consideration when we were designing the UI. For instance, when we added related videos to be closer to the video thumbnail on the watch page, our views went up, right? Just an easy way to expose more content so people can, find it very easily in a short period of time. But then I'm also constantly surprised by mobile too, things that, I don't understand how people, why they're using it this way. And it's very surprising, which is why I like mobile. For instance, we thought that browse would be more popular on mobile than search, right? Because it's kind of difficult if you don't have a QWERTY keyboard to type in, the name of a video. But actually what we found was that people search more instead of browse on a mobile device.
Yeah, there's a lot of unexpecteds that you get depending on who your audience and who your users are. I noticed that the same way as we were setting up a social network online on mobile and doing a bare bones framework. Same kind of thing of like we kind of had an idea of what people how they used it, and we kind of understood what some of the things were that they need. But you set up that bare bones and you put it out there, and you really listen hard. You work closely with your community manager or the person who's doing taking care of feedback, and you just rapidly put stuff out there that people demand. If they're screaming for it, it's a good idea to try to work it into, if you can align it with your business strategy, work it into the what you're releasing. How many of you guys have worked with WAP? Is anybody working on an agnostic platform? Are you mostly working with apps? No? Doing a WAP site? No? Okay. Sarah Allen, I expected you to be more agnostic with PhoneGap and.
Well, specifically, I'm not doing any WAP stuff, but I do a bunch of cross-platform work in it. While and I have a consulting company which is helping me fund my little startup. My partners and I still have separate jobs, and I have a business where we do mobile apps for people, and we've used a couple of technologies. RowMobile is a technology that lets you build a single source and Ruby code and HTML and CSS and build the same app across multiple platforms. And PhoneGap is another one that lets you do multiple cross-platform targets. And those platforms will let you target a number of different platforms, which is really helpful if you have if you need pretty broad adoption, and if your app has a UI that works well with fairly standard UI elements. For something that is very integrated with video, it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you have game-like interaction, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But for the majority of mobile apps, if you want to just extend your presence to mobile, using one of these cross-platform frameworks can make a lot of sense.
And as some of you may have known, Symbian opened up, I think, in the last week. Android is considered much more open than Apple's iPhone platform. Do you guys have any, comments about some best practices working in either or, and kind of what you like, or why you either, if you made the decision or if you helped made the decision, which direction you went, deciding which platform you wanted to go into? If we can talk about that a little bit, that'd be great.
So I can speak a little bit about how, I guess, Wells makes their decisions. It basically was a time to market thing, and also a demand based on how many users are on that particular phone. So at the time, we were responding to iPhone because we could tell that there was a huge spike in users that are using the iPhone, and it only made sense for us to jump into that whole industry of creating an iPhone app. So that's how we kind of got started with that. And there definitely is a ramp up in learning Objective-C if you don't already, and a whole process around getting that application into the store, which with Wells, I wasn't really that a part of that, but with my own app with Chictopia, I definitely did feel some of the pains with putting that in the store, which, you know, it's interesting for if you're coming from a technical background to learn a new language. So for me, I mean, I was happy to do it, but you know, just to expect that there is a little bit of transition with that. I think one of the appeals with that Palm is trying to do with the Palm OS is that they're trying to make it a lower barrier to entry and make it just, you know, using HTML and CSS, and you're able to you know, put up an app easily, as well as, you know, with, I believe, Android, with it being Java based, that a lot of people are already using Java, and there's a lot more people that know Java versus Objective-C, that it makes it a lot easier for people to create apps on there. And I personally think that's going to take off a lot faster than Palm, but yeah.
So, yeah, I wanted to add something about WebKit.
Sarah's a developer.
So yeah, to speak to the developers in the audience. But I think it's important to even realize, you know, as a business owner or making any decisions, technology decisions about mobile, that it's really exciting that we're seeing a number of different platforms adopt WebKit. So it's on Android and iPhone and now Palm. BlackBerry has announced that, or has acquired a company that has a WebKit-based browser. Unfortunately, I hear that BlackBerry is still planning on doing its proxy server, so you'll get dumbed down HTML pages for web applications, which is very unfortunate. BlackBerry, please change that if you're watching. But in terms of application development, you can, what a number of the cross-platform frameworks do, or you can do in your application, is you can put a little mini web browser embedded into your app so that you can develop your application in HTML and CSS. And with WebKit, because it's got such sophisticated graphics capabilities, then you can end up having something that looks just like a native UI and have it run across most phones. Because actually developing in 5 different languages and maintaining that, it may be fun for the first release, but then it stops being fun.
Makes developers very popular in mobile. Job security for developers. Ladies, get into development, please.
For developers. Yeah, exactly.
So I think the question was sort of what
Practices and why you chose
right. Yeah, I've only ever been on Android so far, and the reason that yeah, I don't even know how to address best practices exactly, but the reason that we chose Android is because it was before either of the app stores. I mean, it was before Apple's App Store and before the Android market even existed. But there was the promise of the Android market. I mean, it wasn't explicitly stated, but it was like, we're opening this up for developers, and there was sort of a do you remember the kind of PR thing? There was like tell us what it was. Do you remember?
I don't know.
It was like we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't provide some conduit for which developers could distribute their apps or something like that. And that was sort of the refrain. Yeah, and that was right. And so I knew that there was going to be something approximating a store of some sort or some way to distribute the app eventually. So and then I, you know, I came from a web design background, and so just got into mobile just when this Android buzz started happening, and just when the Android Developer Challenge had been announced, found out about that. And I'm not a programmer. I consider myself kind of a developer, but I'm not a programmer. I'm a designer, and experienced designer, and you know, look and feel whatever. So I approached programmers, and on the Android message boards found all these programmers who wanted to develop something but didn't have an idea or didn't have, you know, whatever. And so we ended up, you know, entering the Android Challenge and winning in the top 20 of the Android Developer Challenge. And so I'm all for Android. I'm a big fan of Android after the $125,000 from the challenge. But no, I just think I've always believed in the promise of it, and I'll never just say, oh well, this is iPhone killer, this is better than iPhone. It's just the whole concept of it, the whole openness of it, and the fact that there's all of these devices, and not only just handhelds, but all these other devices possible. And that's kind of why we've started with Android, and I think it is nice to do cross-platform. But like you said, it's great to have it on all the platforms, but then you have to maintain it, and that's no small task to keep doing updates for all these different platforms. So I think you kind of have to pick and choose.
Well, of course I'm biased, so all I would say, I would love to see great apps on Android.
And that's the plug for the evening. So we obviously evaluate each platform based on the reach. We want to obviously reach the largest amount of customers that we can. We obviously support the majors because that's going to give us the largest reach. I'd say we probably got our biggest bang for the buck with the iPhone app because we basically came out with the announcement of the App Store. So that was a huge both PR opportunity for us as well as just a lot of our customers. We were going to we have an annual conference called eBay Live, and a lot of our customers were watching. They're already managing their business, like checking their business on the actual Safari browser. So we also use a lot of WebKit implementation because we basically create one version of the site and internationalize. So there's a lot of just cost saved in that way. So.
Are you using WebKit in your mobile app?
We are. Item description and PayPal over the native app, and new features to come.
I know at YouTube we definitely had a very multifaceted approach, right? We had a downloadable application, and then we also had the iPhone app, and then we had the mobile website. I'm a very big fan of the mobile web, just because globally there's a larger reach and it's more scalable in my opinion. But so definitely like cross-platform.
Okay. And I know one of you told me a story about how Steve Jobs said he loved your application. Does anybody else want to tell their tales of triumph and how much Google loves their application and gave you lots of money? Or, just let's talk about some of the really great things that happened and came out of your mobile development and an anecdote would be great if you could talk about some of the good things, because I know we just talked about, it's hard and you got to pick one platform. But talk about some of the good stuff. Karyln, you want to start? Because you're blushing.
Are you referring to me? No, so Jobs didn't call us, he loved our app. He called it, this is the meat and potatoes app of the top 10. So
which
we
is good for a vegetarian, right?
But yeah, we were meat and potatoes. So honestly, that whole process was quite interesting. I mean, there was a lot of people being considered for the announcement, and so I felt like I was on American Idol, seriously. And every day we go back and make our pitch, and there was some major companies that didn't practice their keynote every day, and they got on stage and choked, and so they didn't make the final cut. But it was a very interesting process, very fun.
I can tell a story.
Yes.
So one of my partners, Glenn, just went on a trip to Japan with one of our advisors, Ty Roberts, who is CTO of Gracenote, and he took Mightyverse along with a few dozen phrases in Japanese. So you can go look on Mightyverse for I am Ty Roberts, CTO of Gracenote, and other exciting phrases. But they did we'll have a little movie of this coming out soon, but he recorded where can you find great coffee? And they stopped in the subway in Tokyo and played this phrase for this Japanese woman in the shop, and she spoke rapidly in Japanese in ways that they didn't understand. but we had done several use cases before and prepared for this. And so they had the phrase, can you show me on a map? So she went and got a pen and showed him how to get there, and they took the next subway stop to this great coffee spot and had great coffee in Tokyo because of our great mobile app.
Yay! That is great. That's a good one.
Well, I guess I kind of told you a bit about the Android Developer Challenge, but that was when you said winning American Idol. That's what that felt like too, you know. And the aftermath as well. Like the past year has been like, you know, everybody's waiting for your next album, and it's like, you know, oh no, how do we outdo that? You know,
It's a lot to live up to, huh?
yeah, it is. It is. But yeah, when I really thought I was dreaming was Wired magazine chose us as their top pick for indie Android apps. And that was just, I couldn't sleep that night. I was just, you know, a geek heaven, right? And then Time.com chose us as their favorite, or the woman who wrote it chose us as her personal favorite Android app. And then she wrote an article for Time magazine about cooking apps, which, you know, there really weren't cooking apps until we started this. I mean, there was maybe a few, but none of this, you know, none really to speak of until, you know, time had passed. So now there's this article about cooking apps, and then she chose us in our little 6 recipes. She said the 6 recipes were thorough, and it turned out to be my favorite, this little Android app. So that was exciting time. So a lot to live up to. So stay tuned. We'll try.
Anyone else want to comment? Anecdote? No? How about abject failure, horror, misery? Come on, Corinne, I know you have a story.
Did I tell you about our first use case?
Yes. Talk about the first use
We've been
case.
doing a series of user tests. It's actually, they're not user tests because we're not testing the users. All my usability design friends can correct me. So we put together a bunch of Italian phrases for another advisor who was going to Italy, who didn't speak a word of Italian. And so he's got the Mightyverse app, and he goes into this store, and he's found, you know, a delightful platter that he wants to buy, and he finds some suitable Mightyverse phrase to connect to the shopkeeper. And he plays the phrase, and then the shopkeeper starts talking excitedly in Italian for 10 minutes. And he feels completely alienated. And he decides that Mightyverse is maybe not for him. So yeah, from this, we really learned that certainly at this point in our development, Mightyverse really works well if you have some fluency in the language. Some, you know, you can sort of have some hooks, and you're going to actually be excited if somebody babbles to you in their language, rather than being, you know, freaked out because you don't speak a word of it. And that kind of learning is really invaluable, but it was a little sad right afterwards.
User feedback sometimes in the market can be humbling. I mean, most of the time ours has been really, it's almost always the same. It's we love it, more recipes, please. And sometimes they dock us because we don't have a lot of recipes, and sometimes they give us 4 stars because they love it and they want more recipes. It's kind of funny, the perspective. But every once in a while you get one like, I hate it.
Or, you suck, why don't you fix this?
Yeah.
I'm never coming back again until the next day.
It's not really the most useful feedback, you know, I hate it. Okay. What do you do with that exactly? But anyway, it's entertainment.
Christina, anything over you want to share? Or about your new, are you bringing your new site to mobile, or?
I mean, we plan to bring it to mobile right now. I mean, we just yesterday launched in beta, right? So we're starting small, right? Hopefully we'll bring it to mobile.
Add some stuff. Okay. Add some things.
I just want to, I guess, share. It's partly best practices, I guess, which I forgot to touch upon on the last question. But when you're designing anything with mobile, and when you work for a bigger company, because there's a lot of talk about, when you create your own one, little app that's you and maybe another person, you can control kind of how do you want to do it, and it's great to keep it simple. But then when you get into a big company, you have your different lines you have your business, you have your development folks, and you have testers, and just to have them all kind of come together and figure out what do you want to do on the app, it can get kind of challenging, because you, from a technical point of view, you want to make sure you want to get it. The business wants to always get it out as fast as they can. And if you're a developer, you want to also do that, but also make sure it's right. And there's always a lot of compromise back and forth. And then when you have the business, such as what we had a little bit of just confusion of what do you even want on this app, and if the business doesn't know what they want on the app, how can you really just kind of follow it and keep up to pace? So we had a lot of those, challenges with, with some of our development cycles. So just kind of word of thought is that, that's one aspect that I think that people kind of miss. Another thing also as another challenge we had, because we came from developing mobile applications before iPhone, we had to kind of figure out how do we get the WebKit look and feel for iPhone on the Safari, browser, and make it look like you're coming from an iPhone without like creating a whole new parallel code base. So we had like a whole bunch of challenges around that, which I think even now it's still valid, because there's still non-iPhone apps out there that have browser capability. And so you have to keep in mind who your whole audience is. It's not just your smartphones. It's still, you have to think about the little ones that don't have that still and are, using your application, on mobile. So that's something that we try and cater to. We also had, and just even testing, because there's basically how many phones out there, and being able to safely think that you've covered all of your bases for all different phone types can be quite a challenge when you're going through a cycle. It makes it a lot easier when you're just doing like an iPhone app or an Android app, but when you're doing a mobile application for your browser on your phone, it actually is quite heavier on the QA cycle. So I don't know if anyone here has had all experience with that too, but it's
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a pain point. So.
Right. Yeah. And let's not forget design, because it's very important in mobile. And designing, when you're deciding what platform you design for, there's all kinds of structure. It's very different from the web, as I'm sure many people know already. And following some best practices. So especially if you're doing like things for browsers, you don't want to break the page and all those great colors that you're putting in and all the tiny prints. Like, take your phone outside and look at your page in the sun. And this is, how people are going to be looking at it and using it. Just to remember that human beings are looking at this, and that they want information fast. Don't load too many things on the page, because it won't call back from the server fast enough. If, I think the rule is 2 seconds. If they don't get the page back, they start to think it's broken. So it's even faster than on the web. They have more tolerance on the web on a computer than they do on a phone. So just to keep those kind of things in mind. I just want to quickly plug, there's a woman in the Midwest named Barbara Ballard who has a fantastic design library for mobile if people are interested in that area. And she's really a great person. So check out her stuff online too.
Yeah, I totally agree. That if you're doing mobile, make sure that there is somebody who does visual and interaction design on your team. If there isn't, find somebody. A visual and interaction designer who knows their stuff is going to make your code be 5,000,000% better. But I wanted to chime in about what Corinne was saying about use cases and stories. In building mobile apps for other people, I found that if people can actually articulate how somebody would use their app, they are on a path to success. And it's amazing how many people can't do that when they have decided they want to build a mobile app. And there's a tremendous number of people who think that what they need to do is take every feature on their web application and stuff it into a little tiny mobile app. And if everybody can't do everything that they could possibly do on their website or in their desktop application, that they will have failed in their agenda to release their first version of their mobile app. Because all of their users are asking for this. So I think that—
Which is not true.
Well, I mean, if you aggregate especially if you have a mature product, this is really tough. So I'm making fun of people, but it is a really tough call. And you have a mature product and you're talking to 1,000 customers. And if you aggregate what 1,000 customers are asking for, you will find that they want every feature that you have. Because there's a reason that they're in there, right? And somebody wants to access them on mobile. So it is really tough. But the more that you can have a really focused story, like Corinne was saying, the more you're going to be successful.
Also, the more that you can look at it as a different platform, that you can provide different things rather than just being an extension of the website. I think that's a lot of companies say, oh, well, we got to go mobile. And what they mean is we've got to take all our brochures and all of our, our website and just cram it onto a mobile phone somehow. And that's not really what it's about. It's about, offering something uniquely, something specific to mobile, something that you can only do, that's only useful because it's with you. And I don't know, I think there's too much pressure to just duplicate, like you said, just replicate everything from a website, and it's not practical, or is it really desirable?
Yeah.
So the other thing that we have seen is consider the uniqueness and the nuances of the specific platform that you are developing an app for. So just that you have a very, very successful app on one platform, just bringing it over to another platform doesn't guarantee success. So sometimes we have seen app developers do very small changes in the UI flows, few icon tweaks, interaction changes. That is huge from experience perspective. So I just wanted to bring that up as well.
I would also add to being very brief and very focused with whatever you create and thinking about the user on the go is to maybe not just think about mobile, but think about how every channel might work together to offer a customer experience. How someone might use your product on the go, how someone might use your product in their living room, how someone might use your product on the computer. Thinking about how all of those things come together gets very interesting. I've also really enjoyed some of the simplicity that I've created on mobile and bringing that back to the computer. That's been really fun as well. So,
Karyln, are you volunteering to host a cross-platform discussion?
maybe.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everybody that keeping it simple is the most important thing. I know, so we originally had our, very basic mobile website version, which is, you use the up and down keys on your phone to linearly go down. But, and then we're like, okay, let's make something that's cooler, right? And we tried to have, a much more like scroll bars and things like that in the UI, and it just didn't work, right? And then when we came out with our mobile website, the touchscreen version, right, we went back to a linear layout, and we found that even though it's touchscreen, linear layout definitely worked best. And I think, the most basic that you can keep something and don't put too many extra visual features in there and things like that, it's probably the best.
Let's talk about the future a little bit.
The future. I know several of you have some opinions about where you think things are going next and what you would like to work on next. Let's talk about mobile future. Things like augmented reality and projector phones and the potential of like maybe one day seeing actual TV on your phone that works. Oh, did I say that out loud? But yeah, what do you guys think about what's coming next, and what would you like to work on in the future as well? And that could be 5 minutes from now or 10 years from now.
I guess it's sort of a general kind of technology, but I see, now that we have a lot of touch kind of stuff with screens and with the phones, that I foresee kind of like, if you guys have seen Minority Report, where basically it's sort of excuse me, a virtual kind of projection of stuff where you end up moving the computer. I actually really see that is something in the near future. I think it's going to be there. One thing I think is really cool that I see now with just the phone screens being so big, the barcode usability basically going more to a paperless world more than we do now, where you just scan your receipt for a movie or in the airlines, and you just use that, and that's your ticket to go in. You just have it on your phone. You don't have to print out anything else. And I think that's really neat. I think a lot more things are gonna a lot more people are gonna accept that and have scanners for your phone as screens get more sophisticated and crisper.
So I'm looking forward to phones becoming faster. That may seem obvious, but I do think that something interesting happens when computers become faster. You start, in the types of leaps that we've seen in the last 10 years with mobile, in the last 20 years with desktop computing, you start to be able to do fundamentally different things. That, and of course, higher bandwidth. That we start to see right immediately. I think we start to see these lines between the mobile and the desktop blurring. We should be able to toss a document from our phone to our desktop, what's his face in Minority Report. And I think that line blurring even more, like, why should I have to actually sync my phone? Why do I have to make conscious decisions about these things? The phone should just figure it out for me. And making interfaces intuitive is actually very, very hard, and does require a tremendous amount of compute power. And I'm really excited about when we can start to do more and more interesting things, because the phones will be faster. And I really think that we haven't scratched the surface of what we might do with these phones, because we're a little constrained by our desktop GUI origins. And I think as we start to have these different input mechanisms, and we start to really be able to do more interesting things with the camera and the video recording and the voice recording, and we have more and more of those APIs accessible to application development and not just stuck on some other chip on the phone as they are on some platforms. I think it'll get very exciting.
Do you feel like that's maybe why we're behind several countries as far as our phone development goes? It's not just the carriers, it's our imagination as well, that they are hitting the internet for the first time on their phones, and we have a desktop, so we have expectations. Do you have any sense of that or feelings about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that I love the stories I've read about cell phone novels in Japan. Have you guys heard about this? Where, so in Japan, there are people create novels by typing into their cell phones, and they get published on websites. And some of these have been so popular that they've been published as books. But the idea is that not only can you author them in your cell phone, but then they're formatted for your cell phone so you can read them on your cell phone. And this just speaks to, in a place where most people access the web through a mobile phone rather than through desktops, because landlines are so expensive there. Almost this phone is the ultimate personal computer, because you don't share your phone with anybody. the way you share your, most people in the United States, not probably most people in this room, but most people in the United States share their computer with somebody. And I think it creates a completely different experience and a completely different usage model.
Just for your last question, one of my old bosses who is originally from India, and he was saying how he went back there once, and everyone was just doing stuff on their cell phone, stuff like even buying a soda from a vending machine was just payment through the phone, and that's stuff that's definitely not here. But I think one of the reasons also that they do use a lot of their cell phone and not and we don't is also money is like for instance in India I would think almost everyone there has a cell phone, but they can't necessarily afford to buy a PC desktop, and they might not have the power capability to also house that, and the stuff that goes along with it, and just even financially it makes more sense for them just to have everything mobile.
I kind of forgot the question. The question.
About the future.
I got so absorbed. I was in Japan in my mind. I'd like to go to Japan just on a field trip and just check out what they're doing over there. Wouldn't that be cool? Let's do a field trip. Can Google sponsor it?
Yeah, Google, sponsor us.
We should just take the whole
Field trip.
to Japan.
I do think there's just such imagination in Japan. I mean, I don't think it's happening anymore, but there was, who was it? SoftBank that had a OS on the, it's too far back in my brain, I think, to totally remember, but it was a very immersive experience. I mean, it was almost like it was a little virtual reality. I mean, it was like, and that was just sort of standard on your little phone. My friend Erica here probably knows about it, but yeah, it was just standard. I mean, it would just, and it wasn't just kids using it. It was 30-somethings and all kinds of people using it. And it was because it was so intuitive. And even though it was really almost video game-like, where it's these cute little characters punching into doors and opening a door. I mean, there was actual commerce going on and all that kind of thing. And I don't know what the current state of that is, but I mean, things like that seem to go over much. I mean, the adoption rate of things like that is so much higher somewhere like Japan. I mean, people just...
Yeah, the last startup I worked at was a Japanese company, and that's what they were trying to bring over, was that kind of a virtual goods and avatar-based reality. The issues that we ran into here, like they could do all this great stuff in Japan because they had a really robust network. They had Flash on their Nokia phones. The handsets were so much more. We were constrained by both the carriers that there was no Flash supported, so that there is a little bit of technical catching up or leapfrogging that the United States now has to do in order to get to that place. So.
Yeah. Also, just catching up to Europe. I mean, now that things are finally kind of changing with the carriers, but I mean that's been years, and they don't. I mean, everybody in Europe knows what a SIM chip or what a SIM chip is, like just I remember my aunt in her 50s or whatever is talking about a SIM chip, and I'm like, that's so interesting, I didn't even, I barely knew what to do in terms of just how to handle having a mobile phone over there, and in Dublin, my cousin's like, oh, just go to the store and or I'll give you my junker phone and then just fill it up and whatever. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Just put some minutes on it or whatever. And here that's sort of more foreign to us. But I'm excited, of course, about all the, cooking related things. I just love Cooking Capsules itself, I think, comes from me being sort of a futurist and interested in how things could be so much easier and how technology could be such a part of your life and such a powerful time-saving way, and also just enhance your life, not just for the utility of it, but just for the pleasure of it, the enjoyment of it. And so I just love the idea of all the things that could potentially happen with appliances, refrigerators, ovens, countertops, having a screen on your countertop. I mean, even these new iPads that came out, you just think, oh wow, you could just have that. It just started my wheels turning about what would cooking capsules look like on that, and what are the different things that we could do with that medium, since that's a whole different medium from the mobile phone, which is a different medium from the web, which is a different medium from print, and how can you kind of take elements of all those and maximize it into the what's offered that's new with these new things coming out. So anyway.
So mobile phones having better hardware, faster hardware, bigger screens. I'm kind of excited with two categories. One is AR, augmented reality. You'll see Lair, it's a web browser in Android market, as well as Wikitude. These are like you hold your phone out, there is information overlay on top of what you're seeing. You're traveling, you hold your out, or the phone sees and tells you. It's like your personal guided tour. So I feel like there's a huge, immense potential of crazy apps there. The other thing I feel like we'll see a lot is mobile devices have not been traditionally been a gaming devices. We have seen a lot of games, really good games, but I think like with faster processor, GPUs, graphic processors, as well as great controllers and hardwares, I think we are getting into spaces where gamers, game developers would seriously consider these devices as serious games. We hear a lot of games being multiplayer, cloud-based, so I think we are going to see good titles in the game space in this on mobile devices as well.
So I'm not going to burn the dead horse of mobile payments, but or m-commerce, but I think you're going to see a lot of workarounds and a lot of things coming. Already in Miami-Dade County and Los Angeles, they have pilots where you actually can pay for your parking with your phone. So I think we're not going to have to wait for the device makers, the carriers, and the banks to figure this out and figure out getting the chips in your phone. I think you're going to start to see workarounds from companies such as PayPal, et cetera, to get around that. I'm also very interested also in the interfaces coming into your home. I would like to see interactive television go a lot faster and a lot further. Very tired of Comcast and DirecTV and the experiences that we get. Yawn. Would love to have see the stuff with the appliances move forward a lot quicker. I mean, imagine you're, in the morning, your refrigerator tells you to bring your umbrella because it's going to rain this afternoon. It tells you what medications to take. It tells you your resting metabolic heart rate, and hey, you better not eat that. So, it can't come soon enough.
I really like where things are going right now with, being able to connect to the cloud with your mobile device. For instance, when I lost my Palm Pre and I had to get a new one, it was great that everything was there once, I got my new device. Something I would really like to see happen more is, mobile education. For instance, like people in Africa being able, that's the primary way that they're connecting to the internet, right? And having some way that they could, watch a lecture or something like that and then interact with the teacher. I don't know, personally, I think I'm very passionate about that, so that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I think one laptop per child might end up being one mobile device per child. I mean, these days, mobile devices have such power that, we'll probably see that happening first, which I think is really, really exciting.
Okay, we're going to start to wrap it up so we can do some Q&A. And the last thing I'd like to ask from you speakers, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot. In one line, maybe two, tell me how to succeed in mobile, plug whatever it is you're working on, and let me know if you're hiring. That'd be great.
We can start in the middle.
Yeah, we can start in the middle. Okay. So I know you have to think about that. It kind of put you on the spot.
So to succeed in mobile, try something, get experience, really understand the platform, whatever the heck you're doing, and then you'll do great things and focus. To plug my own stuff, download the Mightyverse iPhone app. Yay. Tell me what you do with it. Send me mail. If you need a mobile app or a web application, you can also hire my team at Blazing Cloud.
How to succeed in mobile, I guess. I'm still figuring that out. I mean, we're not profitable yet, but that takes a while. So succeeding in mobile in terms of that, still trying to figure all that out. And but yeah, I guess just keep it simple. I guess there's different approaches. You can either do the sort of throw it out there, rapid iteration, scrap it if it's not working approach, or you can really do the long brainstorm, come up with the idea, refine the idea, really get the user experience idea, but keep it simple, nothing, and that's kind of what we did. I think we put a lot more thought into it from the get-go, and I think that is kind of important no matter what project you're doing. What to like you said, you need a user experience designer. It's amazing how little this is understood, like how programmers just want to program something without it having been designed first. It's sort of like building a house without a blueprint. It doesn't make any sense. So I think one way to succeed in mobile is really to think about it in advance of even starting to think about building it. I mean, at first, think about the user experience, think about the person using it, think about the actual consumer and what they're going to do with it and why it's useful. Make something that's truly useful, or fun, it's fine too, but just think about the user first, because it's amazing how much that doesn't happen, so. Anyway, and and download Cooking Capsules. Right now it's the Cooking Capsules Taster. It's on the Android market, and I haven't checked numbers super recently, but we have over 60,000 downloads so far, which is really cool. And we have 8 recipes in the first one, and it's 4 French ones, 4 Indian ones, and we're coming out with another one very soon that's brunch recipes. So 8 brunch recipes, like how to make your own eggs Benedict and quiche and whatever, things like that. So anyway, keep a lookout for that, and let us know what you think. And follow us on Twitter at Cooking Capsules, and say hello.
So how to succeed in mobile? I think I'm going to repeat here. Focus on end users and be very, very agile. And yes, we are hiring.
I'll start with that too. We're hiring. No, just getting out of the way. How to succeed in mobile? I would say if you have an idea or a spark or anything, go after that. And if you're a developer and you don't have a background in user experience or vice versa, partner with people, network, and get together with people. I mean, because they can push on your ideas and make them even better. So I would just say to get started, get out there, partner with someone, and get your ideas out there. And people see that you have great ideas, and next thing you know, you're creating the next experience for mobile, interactive TV, etc.
Makes sense. I'm going to have to agree with pretty much everybody here is keep it simple. Also launch early, iterate often, right? I think that also works for just online in general. And check out pickv.com. It's a dating site that matches people off of their common interests, like their favorite movies, music, TV shows, and books.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everyone here, but essentially, when you're creating something on mobile, figure out what it is, the problem is that you're trying to solve for your user, and work out some design flows of how that will make sense for the particular device that you're thinking of, developing on for. And my little plug, check out Chictopia.com. It's a fashion social media site, so it connects people that are inspired and with fashion, whether you're looking for inspiration or out there to express your style. It's a way to connect with people that have a common interest in fashion like you. And we're also hosting a conference in New York for New York Fashion Week. So if you happen to be, and basically it's discussing, the topic of how online has really affected fashion and social media, how that's impacted the fashion industry. And so if you are in New York next week, we have a conference on Feb 13th. So, please check us out.
And I guess, let's see, mine would be, take your craziest idea and shop it around out there, because it's likely that someone else will either really like it or have the same crazy idea, and go big and then edit it down and, do the stuff that you're really interested in, because the passion will keep you going. And let's see, my Twitter is @Krismet, KRISMET, my shameless plug. I don't Twitter during my events, but I Twitter other times, not while I'm working. And now we're going to open it up to Q&A, and also remember that we have desserts and coffee in the side. Yes.
My question is for Corinne. I wanted to know how you got Wells Fargo to let you do their iPhone app, being the big, huge, monstrous organization that they are. Why did they do this in-house rather than just farm it out to somebody? Because I've seen other large organizations. I work for a large company. We have mobile apps, and you go and you look, oh, we bought somebody, or we shipped it to Estonia or something like that. And it works great. It works fine. So I think it's really, really cool that you actually are in a place where you actually got to do something like that. So maybe you could just talk about how you got to do that.
Sure. Well, to be honest, I think they, the business folks actually did look at third parties to assist us with creating the iPhone app. But what happens with that is there is a lot of overhead in the negotiation, of getting the contract and to then produce a timeline to produce the actual application. What it turns out, we were also doing some work in parallel to that, some in-house work in parallel to doing the negotiations. And what we found out is that, we could actually get a time to market even faster because we happen to have the expertise in-house. So we just chose to go that path this time. It's not to say, I'm not there anymore, but it's not to say that they may not use, they may use another company for the next iteration. So it's we are mobile development, so we did have some people that had picked up Objective-C and did at least the necessary things that we required for the feature set that we wanted to put out there.
Hey, Karyln, could you talk a little bit to that too? eBay has something like 4 billion hits a day, and it is a very big company, and it has in-house mobile.
Yes, so we have an in-house mobile department. We do all of the development for the website in-house. For iPhone development, we still farm it out. However, all of the requirements and design are done in-house. For our first release on the iPhone application, we did that in 5 weeks only, so it was smoking. So in order to move that quickly, we kind of needed to basically have that access nonstop during that time. I worked with a lot of outside agencies and firms. It does require a lot of hand-holding, I find. So just based on the customer background and knowledge and just having to move fast, that's been our approach so far.
I work at Stanford University, where we have the luxury of having an amazing class called Introduction to phone programming. It's all free, available online and through the iTunes store, and it's all video, and Apple actually sponsors the class, which is great. And I'm just wondering if there's anything like that for the Android platform, because it's actually how I learned to program for the iPhone, and it would be amazing if there were a resource like that for Android.
I'll definitely check back. Be awesome to have one.
Oh.
I hear we are working on it.
Bug in your ear. Okay.
I keep hearing about the debate between PDA development to become more robust versus the mini computer becoming smaller. So where is that debate and how relevant is it to you guys? Or have you guys heard of that?
Anybody? I can comment.
Anybody?
Well, I really don't care. To be frank, basically, I evaluate new devices as they come out, whether they be something that's, like we're seeing Linux on mobile devices, right? And I think that's probably what you're referring to as a mini computer getting smaller.
Right, or just the usability. I mean, where do you think the trend is going? Are consumers going to want to have, bigger PDAs, or do they want smaller computers?
I think there's just a merging of it, and I think people don't care what chipset's inside, right? And right now, the distinction between a PDA or a phone and a computer is really its chipset, which is arbitrary. I mean, it's like people don't understand the difference between a desktop app and a browser app, even though as technologists, we're like, well, of course, one's on your desktop. But frankly, they're both on your desktop, and nowadays they look awfully the same. And so I think people sometimes they want big screens, and sometimes their screen's too big to carry with them. And I think we're going to see more mix and match type of things. We'll see a lot of experimentation with these all-in-one kind of things like the iPad. And I certainly hope we'll see more and more things that, get near each other and exchange data. So I think it's going to be like I remember reading about when motors were first developed, and you would buy a motor from the Sears catalog, and then you'd get your coffee grinder attachment, and you'd get your different attachments that allowed you to do things with your motor. And I think that's where we are with computers. You get your computer and you attach things to it, and then maybe you get another computer that's sort of in the form factor of a mobile phone. But we're seeing these chips embedded everywhere, and they're going to be in our refrigerators and counters and watches and earrings and whatever. And whether we like it or not, the objects around us are just going to get smarter, and I think they'll
and cheaper or less expensive. Yeah.
So I have a question for you from an app developer perspective. How do you see supporting your app on these devices? Some of which are larger screens, some are smaller, some are in between.
I actually was going to speak to that exact point. Is what we're seeing here is at home and on the desktop, you get these screens that are just getting larger and larger and larger. And then on the other side, you see smartphones and things such as the iPad and on and on. And so creating for these type of experiences is starting to get very difficult because you're seeing things get wider and wider. So how do you create an experience that can work on this huge monitor as well as on this tiny phone? So it gets very challenging to maintain all of those different experiences. And I wonder how we're going to do that in the future.
Yeah.
Well, I think that as the machines get faster, it's easier to have these intermediary frameworks that help, right? 10 years ago, you had to do everything really custom for each device, and you had to write native code that was really, really highly tuned, and it was very, very expensive in terms of time and effort to create a mobile application. And so it wasn't just that the carriers stifled creativity, just the effort it took stifled creativity. And I think that now it's much easier. There are these frameworks that do UI for you. You can have these different affordances that the platform gives to you. And I think that just as we've seen with desktop development, when we got bigger and bigger screens, the platforms did more for us. And I think that either the device manufacturers are going to do some stuff that really helps, or developers will invent it on top of that, because it's inevitable. If you have to continue to develop software for 5 different, fundamentally different platforms, you will invent a way to make it easy, because, otherwise you lose your mind. So I think that it is a challenge, and it's an interesting challenge, and it'll be a while before we figure it out. But
I'd like someone to address the future of mobile apps versus tools developed in the cloud. Specifically, a few days ago, I wasn't aware of this, but I guess Google's Google Voice for the iPhone was disallowed at one point by Steve Jobs. He just didn't want the app. It competed or whatever. So immediately Google went around, and you can get the exact same Google Voice by just going on the iPhone on the web. So what's the difference here of developing apps as opposed to going on the cloud?
I can speak to that. I think that it may be my corner of the world, but it seems like most mobile applications have their fingers into the cloud anyhow. And web applications are having more and more powers that are kind of like mobile applications, in terms of being able to access the device capabilities. Click to call being the simplest one. And then you can have voice controls, which then you're talking on your telephone, but you're doing things that you might expect are happening on your phone through an application. And I don't remember who was talking about, like, developers will find workarounds, right? When you can't do it on the device, you do it in the cloud. If it's more convenient to do it in the cloud, you do it there. You need to do it on the device when it's offline, when you can't reach the cloud. But hopefully, that more and more we're getting coverage everywhere. So maybe it won't matter in a few years. So I think right now we do have some challenges, because you have to build a whole bunch of code in one place and it won't run in the other place, and you have to shift strategies when technology or organizations get in your way. But I think that just right now we have a lot of choices, and that can be a painful thing, and it can be a really delightful thing. I don't know if that answers your question.
Hi, I'm an executive director of a nonprofit, and we work to get 6th, 7th, 8th graders interested in science and technology. And I think that these teenagers are a really untapped market for mobile applications. And I'm wondering if you have any ideas of where I can go, or just off the cuff ideas about how we can get teenagers to appreciate and love technology through their cell phones and developing mobile apps for them.
I think that's a great age to target for developing. I'll get on my soapbox for a minute and say that I think programming is a life skill. I think every 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grader should learn to program. Not because they will become software developers, but because if you have that kind of thinking, you will succeed in our world 20 years from now, 10 years from now. Because every software application you use has an expert feature that you kind of have to be a programmer or think like a programmer to use. So I really applaud what you're doing. And there are a number of different organizations working on ideas for teaching kids to program. I think there's a challenge with mobile devices because most kids don't have smartphones, and those are the easiest ones to program. But if you could get smartphones in the hands of kids, then they could be programming in languages like Ruby or JavaScript, which are very accessible to novice programmers.
So what do you guys think about mobile money? You touched upon it before, and you talked about the future, but I mean, I definitely see the future being mobile money. I just came back from Kenya, and it was remarkable to see on my iPhone someone sent me cash. So what do you guys think about that? It's also jailbroken and unlocked. That's why I could do that.
I think we do that today, right? I mean, with
PayPal has member to member. I can send you money, but are you speaking from bank? Okay. Right. Yeah. I think a lot of the third world countries too, because like a lot of people don't even have bank accounts, so they'll go in and get the phone and use that basically as their bank account. So part of it's infrastructure. Obviously, there's a lot of things we should have here.
What do you guys think the future of mobile could be? Once everyone in the world can send money, there's no more. You wouldn't really need an IMF, right? You can send money across all channels that way.
One of the challenges is the interfaces are not standardized, so it's very difficult to talk between them. So I have been in mobile like standards a few years back, and the challenges we faced that the banks have different interfaces, the credit cards organizations have different interfaces, and it was very difficult from a app perspective to develop an app that could talk to basically anyone. So that's one of the challenges. I know there are lots of standards organization, even credit cards organization, and banks trying to solve it, but it's really a bottleneck and a challenging process.
I mean, I think that could be the direction where we're going. I don't see it any time in the near future, just because I think even the U.S. Public is really kind of hesitant to do stuff that can just, if for instance, if their phone was stolen, or security-wise, that but when it comes to their money, I think the U.S. is a little more hesitant about making it easier sometimes for people to access their accounts. So I think that tends to be a challenge. But then, basically security regulations and all of that too, that slow it down.
My question was really more about like when this actually happens, because I'm sure it will. What do you guys see happening after it happens? Like you use text messages to send cash. There's no like. I wasn't really talking about app stuff. I was talking about the actual mobile industry changing.
Well, I do think it's cultural. Like there's cultural differences that make it longer to adopt here, but I think you're right that it is inevitable. Like it's just too easy, and there are ways that to make it have the privacy protection that we people demand here, and have the security and address the security issues, which frankly have been addressed overseas in some ways much better than we're addressing here. But I think that when those things happen, then we won't need credit cards. We'll have these electronic transfers, and it'll make commerce much easier and more fluid. I do think we'll see micropayments being much more cost effective, and that will change the types of things that we buy and how we pay for things. And I think it'll get interesting in that way, because credit cards create some odd pricing models that we currently have. And the things that I think we'll see that are part from commerce and part from just the power that having a computing device be attached to you or carry around with you will do is it'll give individuals more power to be small business owners, to conduct commerce, to be producers, even if they don't have their own business. I think we'll see user-generated content, so-called, be monetized, so that you're seeing that a little bit now with YouTube and whatnot, but it's still pretty rare, and you kind of have to be a professional, even if it's so-called user-generated content. But I think we'll see that individuals with individual skills will be able to use those skills to produce, whether it's writing or spoken language, or apply whatever skills they have wherever they are, and and contribute to the economy in ways that we're not seeing, I think, a lot of our skills being used today.
We have a few more questions, and we can always carry on this conversation over coffee in a moment. So,
Hi. Have any of you developed for the iPad? And if you haven't, why? And if you have, what specifically? That's specific to the iPad, not just the iPhone.
I guess that would be a no.
I just heard about it the other day.
We've examined our app on it, and it looks awful. Don't believe what you saw in the videos. It blows up basically 1 pixel into 2, so your app can't be reinterpreted seamlessly.
My question is, I worry about that. You know, how if the whole app store is there and it's intended for these small devices, and then all of a sudden it's just.
Well, I would question though, should we
on
just reinterpret a small app for that device? I would want to create a whole new experience.
Right. Me too.
I would want to look at how to create a better experience for a mobile experience, so it's a mobile device rather than just the straight desktop experience, which can be overly complex anyways.
I have sort of a two-part question. This is more about mobile ads. I didn't hear anybody talk about that. And, well, in general, the mobile ad scene and what you guys think about that. And the second part of my question is more about Android. And do you have something equivalent to AdSense for mobile apps, similar to how AdSense works for someone's web application or something, maybe?
So I'll take the Android question. So I'm from the Android team. So Android, from Android perspective, we develop a platform. So Google monetization products are very, very separate from the Android platform. So.
Well, and didn't Google buy AdMob? Did I not hear that right?
Yes, but I cannot comment that.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Anybody else want to speak to that? Monetizing on mobile?
We just started mobile advertising. We just started using AdSense relatively recently. And, you know, I hope that over time, I mean, I think you have to have a lot of users in order to really render results from it. I mean, because we've been pretty popular in our own right, but, you know, I mean, honestly, we just integrated it a few months ago, and I just got my first check for $138. So if that gives you an idea, like how I don't know if I should admit that, but I'm hoping that over time, you know, as we build our offering, that you know, offerings, as we have many apps and many impressions, and also because we're kind of a niche market, but well, in a way, I mean, everybody eats, right? So it's not. I like to think of it as not that specific. People go, "Oh, it's for foodies." No, it's for people who eat. Anyway.
Christina, could you comment on that? How did you guys monetize YouTube on mobile?
I can talk about that.
You can't talk about that? Okay. All right. Hold on one second.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, thanks. Want to
go
really
ahead.
spill the bug to this. So what's limiting you for not putting a lot of recipes on your site? Because you said only 8, and I would think you can put gazillions, and your monetization model can be, okay, give me 99 cents. You can download, you know, 20 recipes, something like that.
Right.
Or get some kind of discount when you go to Trader Joe. I was thinking.
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking a lot of monetization models.
Yeah, it sounds funny that we only have 8 recipes, and the reason is that that we're actually producing these cooking shows that accompany each one. So so I kind of look at it more like, and obviously, you know, we're building you know, we're gonna have to build the volume. We can't just live on this few recipes alone, but at the same time, it's like they're collections of recipes, and where our quantity is. I mean, people are looking for quantity, and they go, "Why would I go there if I could get millions of recipes, you know, on Google or something. If I could just Google and get all these, or go to, these other sites or whatever. And I think what's unique about us is that our quantity is within each recipe. So each recipe you get a whole show that tells you exactly how to make it. You get what tools you need, further information about it, and the shopping list, and then how to make it. And so it's sort of like, at the end of the day, how many recipes do you really need in your arsenal? So I mean, if we can slowly grow this nice library of really in-depth and this really easy and in-depth experience, that's kind of what we're going for. Because frankly, it's easy to get thousands of recipes places, but it's not as easy to get that kind of experience, and that's what we're looking for. And we're actually producing the shows, so that's what takes time. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's a lot of really exciting business models for it. Yeah. And that's one of them. Yeah, that's one of them, is the location-based stuff is huge. I mean, yeah, just that's what's so exciting about it, is I think we have this sort of fertile ground for, as these technologies come about, and partnerships with different companies where if we're making fondue, we can sell the fondue set through Williams Sonoma or whatever. We could have all kinds of product placement. So it's a matter of, I think really what we're trying to do now is gain traction and get attention and get more users, and then kind of team up with different companies who want to promote their. We should probably talk about this over coffee, because you don't have a mic for.
Yeah, we do have coffee and dessert ready, and the speakers will be available for as long as they are free to discuss. I need the speakers to stay up front for a moment, and thanks again, Angie and Google. You guys were great. Angie, go to Girl Geek Dinner, Bay Area Girl Geek Dinner.com, and give her suggestions for other talks. She's a very nice person and does a great job.